is Marie Atencio, and I'm from Santo Domingo, Pueblo, in New Mexico.
Okay, thank you, Grandma. And so I'm going to start with my questions, and if you have any questions about what I'm trying to ask you, just go ahead and tell me to repeat it, and I'll be happy to do so. All right, so my first question is, considering your spirituality, how does it differ from your understanding of what religion is?
Spirituality is the most important thing in life. And there's, I guess, a little difference between spirituality and a religion.
Okay.
And
So, if you could just elaborate that on a little bit. What do you mean by just the differences, or what in your mind, what are the difference?
well, spirituality is that when we were growing up, that was our spirituality, and the difference between that is religion came from the Spaniards. And the Spaniards brought in the Catholic religion. And many of our different tribes of Indians have their spirituality, and different pueblos and tribes have their own different religions, whether it's Catholic or Mormon or other religions.
Okay. Okay, so I understand you. So, basically what you're talking about is how we Native Americans from the Pueblo side of the house, anyway, in New Mexico, we had the Catholic religion introduced into our daily lives from the Spaniards that came through and introduced the Catholic Church. So that's what you were talking about, and the difference between growing up, the spirituality, given our Native American side and our roots and the way we, just live within the earth and, respect our surroundings and whatnot. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. All right. So, considering, during your lifespan, when do you think was a time that you really depended on your spiritual strength the most?
From the beginning, as I learned from my own father, that through spiritual, you must have faith. Faith is one of the important things in life. And as I was growing up, spiritually was one of my main things that I grew up with. No matter what happens, no matter where I was, no matter where we're at, we always had to have faith. That as I grew up older with our Catholic religion, that same thing goes. If you have faith in your spiritual life or in your Catholic religion, you must have faith, and faith can move mountains.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a right way to explain it.
No, that's fine, and I understand what you're trying to tell me. Actually, you did really good. And so, given your spiritual faith, that faith factor that you were speaking of,
spiritual strength is
Do you like look towards like your family members that are there with you, and just simply being grateful for them, or do you kind of look around at the beauty around you in the desert, in the arid desert that we live in New Mexico? Where do you draw that spiritual strength from?
as I go outside of the house, you look around, there's spiritual being around. And you say your prayers, put your heart into it, and that's where you draw your strength and faith in order to take care of your families, your children, and all the people.
Okay, and in your words, and with respect to what you believe in your spirituality, how much do you think people around you or people out there, how much do you think their well-being depends on that spirituality?
I think everyone depends on that very much. And that's how we continue to make our living and love one another and be together. And no matter whether your children or your grandchildren, no matter where they are in this earth, spiritually, we pray that they're safe no matter where they're at. And as we hope and pray that someday they will return us back home, and we have to have a lot of hope.
Okay, I like what you said about making your living and how that, how spirituality is affected in that sense. So can you just tell me about, what you mean by making your, making your living, whether it's just monetary or what does that entail for you?
Well, for example, I used to question how I went to a Catholic school, and through faith and hope, it helped me to go out and to continue with higher education, and I was always grateful for all the help that I got from my family and the people that I had gone to school with to help me through school and to obtain what I had to make a living for, not for myself, but for everyone. That I'm always very thankful that our families, my dad especially, to encourage us to go on to school so that someday you can make something of yourself. And all that has happened to me, and I'm very grateful.
Or how did it affect the relationships you had with
I think I've always learned that spiritually help you understand people and to care for one another. In so many ways, it helps you understand people, whether it's good or bad, to understand each other's, to understand all the people that we're supposed to care for, no matter who they are or where they're from or what nationality they are. That spirituality really helped me to get along with people, to understand them, and to care for one another.
So, when you had to, when there's sometimes that you had to kind of deal with people that you may not have wanted to, or you may have had to because it was maybe in your work, or maybe a family member, or whatever, when you would have to dig deep into your spiritual being, what would you keep in mind? What helped you kind of bring you back to, you know, putting yourself aside or your emotions aside and thinking about yourself spiritually, and how you just mentioned that you got to get along, and you know you can't treat people however you want to treat them. You got to basically respect them. So where did you kind of keep that inside of you?
Most of it goes back to how my parents raised me and what they taught me, to be kind to one another, and like I said, to understand, because different people have their own ways, and so that understanding them and to care for one another helped me through talking to people, or no matter what attitudes they had. You learn to understand them because you pray spiritually. And what helped me through is to have a lot of faith. Faith is so very important. If you have faith, it brings you through no matter how hard life gets. And I've gone through a lot in my lifetime, but I'm still